And so I kind of feel like, well, yeah, like I'm self-made, but how far does like self-made actually go?
I always equate it to having two bosses. Your first boss is the stylists who are working in your salon, and the second boss is the clients, because you have to make both of them happy and make both of them feel like they're more important than you. Otherwise, what kind of a business or sustainability do you have within the foundation? I have spent $5,000, $8,000. I've spent so much money on ongoing education, and I may not have gotten the results out of it that I was hoping to get, but I'll tell you what, I learned a lot no matter what. We are going to have a nice little conversation today about the process of being self-made and what does self-made actually mean. This topic for me personally has been coming up more and more as I've been talking to some of you entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and those of you who are leading a team or even wanting to expand into your business. And I feel like the term self-made has a lot of expectations surrounding it. And I think a lot of times you can be hard on yourself because you think that you should know how to do everything. And I don't feel like self-made this is not the right term.
I do not feel like that's a real thing.
No, I don't either. Like, can we just erase this word from our minds? Like,
yeah, I'm with you. I don't ever use that word. I don't think hardly. And you wrote self-made doesn't mean by yourself. And I just feel like that already encompasses the fact that like self-made kind of isn't a real thing. I always think when I'm like, okay, am I self-made, whatever that really does mean. Sometimes I just think like I didn't go to full on college. So the stuff I'm doing, the stuff I'm learning through entrepreneurship, like I've had to put like the heart and hustle into it. And so I kind of feel like, well, yeah, like I'm self-made, but how far does like self-made actually go with your voice and with people? You can know you're self-made, I guess, but for someone else to know who you are, what your vision is, what you're doing, I think it takes a lot more than just self.
I totally agree. And I love that you actually spoke to that, because part of what I've noticed, and I'm going to translate this in the world of marketing because that's what I always focus on, right? But when it comes to the world of marketing, your word about yourself will never come across as strongly as your word on the successes of others, right? So like, let me give you an example. You as a salon owner, the successes of your hairstylist will read so much better than you talking about how successful you are as a salon owner. Because if you are self-proclaimed that you are the best, then there isn't a lot of wiggle room or curiosity for people to feel like they're invited into it. So by you celebrating the successes of others, you're still celebrating the same thing, which is my salon is kick-ass and awesome, and I am celebrating this right now. But you're focusing on those and you're elevating the ones who actually make your business dream come alive. And what I find so interesting is that when I talk to individuals who are interested in solopreneur, entrepreneurship, or even owning their own business, a lot of times the first thing that they say is, I want freedom. And then the second thing they say is, I want to make more money. And what is so ironic about that, especially when it comes to a brick and mortar business, is that freedom is very subjective, right? So if you want to have a brick and mortar that is thriving and doing well, then you absolutely need to be there for your team. There's no doubt about it. There's no question in that story. The second thing is that if you want to make more money, then that also means, ironically, that you have to physically be there more. And when I say physically be there more, I always equate it to having two bosses. Your first boss is the stylists who are working in your salon, and the second boss is the clients, because you have to make both of them happy and make both of them feel like they're more important than you. Otherwise, what kind of a business or sustainability do you have within the foundation? So bringing this all back full circle to self-made, when it comes to the story of self-made, and when it comes to the story of marketing your story being self-made, focusing on those who are crafting your story and who that story is for, and making them the hero of your story is absolutely going to make your business thrive and flourish a little bit more.
There are so many leading roles in that story. Yes. And I think that when we say self-made, we're not really giving the full weight of how that story is created, is being created, is evolving, is reaching other people. So that's why it's just a weird term for me sometimes, because you mentioned, in the salon, and as a salon owner, I mean, you have your front desk people who are like the face of your salon. And if someone talks to them before they talk to you, like, are they telling your story? And what impact is that having? And how many times do people come into your salon and you don't interact with them, and everything they know about you and your salon and your vision have nothing to do with you in a way, because you didn't interact with them. It was the front desk, or it was a stylist, or another technician there. So I think that that's huge. I love how you always take things full circle and attach them to marketing. And I really wanted to put it on a stylist level as well, because when we post pictures of our work, the picture is probably better. We spent all this time, we got all the angles, we got out our ring light, like we did all the things, right? We're like contortioning our client, and we post a reel or we post something, and it has so much less impact than the selfie that our client took saying, I have never been happier with my hair. Wow, my hair, this is 6 weeks later, and look still how my hair looks. And then we get to repost that, or someone sees it on our client's page. And that has so much more power to tell somebody what we do, our value, our qualifications, like, than anything that we could have had posted ourselves. So first, I love that you put that. And so a little bit of examples of more of the self-made, not meaning by yourself. I really love that saying that if you want to go fast, go by yourself. And if you want to go far, go with others.
Oh my gosh, I love that saying too. I say that to Sonny all the time because he always walks ahead of me. I'm like, do you want to go far? Yeah, is it or fast or far? Like, which one is it? And then he'll slow down like, okay, fine. Come on, let's go.
I love
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you said that quote, I was like, I love that quote. I use that one all the time. Okay, keep going.
No, but I mean, it is so true. And like personal examples, I mean, when I opened my salon, I mean, it was a salon, a day spa, a medical spa. It had a rental space in it. I had a bistro. And when I want to do a collection, like I'm getting better at like keeping things a little more simple, because even simple isn't easy. And we all know that. But when I have a collection that I want to do, it used to be like, 3 models, 3 looks for each of the models, like texture, color, couple styles on each of them, wardrobe, makeup, all of the things. So I feel like my visions, like my dreams, are always too big for just me. And that's a good, like, I think it's supposed to be that way. So I think coming alongside other people in their story, in their vision, supporting them, being a supporting role for their story actually overflows in our story. And then we get the opportunity to invite people into our process. And I love that about collaboration and not doing things by yourself. And even when you're self-made, you're not, because you got something that you learned that took you somewhere to the next point, from someone else, like whether you took your own like online class or whether you went and you assisted. I think there's a lot of pieces, and I don't think we're really built to completely create from start to finish on our own.
You know what's interesting? This is a little off topic, but still kind of around the same thing. I've been going to the same dentist since I was in high school, right? And so, and I've lived a life. I've lived a longer life, right? So,
you and me both, Ken.
I know. Well, the reason why I want to say this is because I am all about supporting a business, and I love relationships. I want to nurture those long-term relationships. But I've hit a crossroad. The past couple of times that I've gone to this dentist, I just have noticed that there have been a couple of things that have changed within the structure of the business. And unfortunately, this doesn't have to do with the owner so much, even though it's her name on the door. I originally came to her. I remember back in the day when she first started, she would spend a lot of time with me, and she knew the names of my kids' names. And You could tell she took a lot of pride in her business. Fast forward 20 something years later, and now she's got a lot of people operating underneath her business. But what the sad part is that because so much of her business started thriving due to the technicians that she brought in, and that recently has changed, her whole business feels different. And the last couple of times I've gone in there, granted, she's been there to say hello to me, and that's the only familiarity I have. My experience there has not been great. And I decided today, literally just before you and I got on this podcast, with my nice, pearly, shiny, clean teeth, that I raw, sore, torn up gums. Yeah. Am I blinding you with my white?
Yeah, so much sparkle. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the thing that you can't see is that my gums are shredded to pieces. And unfortunately, it's been a rough experience. And I literally had to stop this girl and just say, like, I'm sorry, but this is way too much for me. I feel like I'm not going to have any teeth left by the time you're done with me. And I just started laughing. Yeah, because all I could do was add humor into it because it was so painful. And I didn't want to make her uncomfortable, but I did politely ask her, like, can you go a little more gentle with me? And she did a little bit, but unfortunately, she was on a clock. She was in a rush. And there is a difference between being efficient and saving time, right? And so I think sometimes those don't correlate the same. And I guess the whole big story that I want to tell you guys with this is that the self-made process within this business was reliant on the technicians that were serving you or serving me. And as soon as those people were gone, that place is no longer. And that is exactly what a business is. A business, as soon as the beating heart and pulse of that business changes or transfers to another person, if there's not someone else to be there in that space, then that business is not going to be the same business anymore. So it's really important that whatever it is that you're doing, whoever you invite in, whoever you decide to be in partnership with, it all really matters. It all makes a difference. And that is the part of the self-made process. You can't be self-made if you aren't the one doing everything from beginning to middle to end. And guess what? You never get to replace yourself either if you do that. So I just want to encourage you to open up your doors a little bit more. Open up whatever you can open. Open the windows, the doors. Yeah. Open up those opportunities to have others be with you and allow the creative process to grow beyond you as well. And so that might mean being in collaboration with others, like what Drea was saying. That might mean having a mentor that can help guide you through the process, that maybe you're seeing things a little differently, or you're not seeing the roadblock that's ahead of you. That could also mean just being a part of or being active in a community. And that's the reason why this community has become so important for me, so important for Drea, because as we grow, having a stable point where we know we can lean on others and we know we can trust those people is absolutely vital. So that way we can take the risks and we know that we can have like that trust fall, and we know that there's going to be other people there to catch us. And I think that's the reason why, as far as any business goes, you absolutely need to have a net to catch you when you fall backwards, because it's inevitably, as things grow and change and shift, in order for you to grow as a person, there needs to be a support structure or system in place in order for that self-made process to really flourish. So what I want to ask of you guys is, if there is someone in the process that's helped you, it could be a mentor, a coach, a coworker, a friend, a babysitter that you grew up with, a coach, your best friend, your spouse, your whoever, anyone in your life. It could even be your own child. Anyone in your life that has been a part of your story, that has helped mold and shape the way that you see your life today, the way you see yourself in the future, the way that you like the passion that's carried within you and who you are as a person, what you want to do. I want to encourage you guys to just give them a shout out at some point this week and put it up on your stories. And you could put a picture of yourself or a picture of something that's significant to you and just give them a shout out and just say, thinking about all the mentors that have helped create who I am today and shape me into the person that I want to be. Things like that can be really valuable, but it's also, again, a part of showing your story on how you were created. And that's celebrating your self-made process without showing how successful you are, or how about without gloating, without showing like, this is how far I've come, because that invites more people in and it makes people, it humanizes you and it creates a strength in the foundation of your business. So I went on a huge tangent here. And again, I know I was telling the story about my dentist and that was today, but that is a perfect example in how that self-made discovery process fell a little short because she didn't have the right pieces. I think it's really important to have a structure that everyone has to follow, or that's why we talk about core values. That's why we talk about expectation. That's why we talk about hiring slow and firing fast, things like that. It's really important to make sure that everyone is speaking the same terminology or fits the criteria, the mold. And guess what, guys? That's all fitting in the world of marketing. And that's exactly why I'm so passionate about it, because if you're not marketing to the right people, or you're not marketing to the right businesses or whatever, that can dilute the strength of your voice. And it also is what loses trust with people, unfortunately.
Thinking about your situation this morning, and it's really easy to get lost in the process. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are just starting out with their business or with their side hustle. And that's a really exciting place to be. So don't rush that process, because you get to do all the things now, like the way that you want to, and you get to take in all of the information. It's harder to go backwards than it is, I think, to go forward sometimes in a business situation. You get lost in the process. You sometimes forget what your own vision was, because there's so much noise and there's so many other people infiltrating your original vision. You get busy because you're busy. You have so much work to do that sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. So you talked about core values. I talk about creating your why. And I think really often it is so important. And I have learned this lesson over and over again, because I'll see something shiny, or, an opportunity comes up, or I forget, or I get taken for a ride by my schedule or by my feelings or by someone else's idea. And that's happened a million times. So I think it's really important, because your team, your culture can't be created speaking the same language if you don't know what that language is, or if you've lost it along the way. So
Red one.
Just, creating your why and going back to it, creating your core values, like making time to sit down every year and really sit down and say, why did I start this? Like, what is my purpose? What are my goals? Do they look the same? What has the evolution look like? Do the people that are alongside me for this process, do they align with that? Like, are we sharing the same passions and the same philosophies? Because I think that you have to reevaluate things on a regular basis. You have to create your why. You have to revisit it often, and you have to revise it when needed. But I think it's really, really important to have those people in place, because I think what happened here is those people weren't in place with your situation. And you can only do so much yourself as your business grows. So it's really important to have people, but to have the right people that are speaking the same language as you are. And inviting people into your process, I have found it is trial and error sometimes, which is why you have to make time to revisit and revise it, because it takes vulnerability. Like, you're trusting others with your dream, your money, your time away from maybe your kids or your family. These are big things that you are trusting people with. And I think there's a balance, because I think you have to have people along with you. And I think for you to not get stagnant, you also, in the process of your own vision, have to come alongside other people for humility, for a fresh take on things. But that means that we have to open ourselves up and share our ideas and trust people to show up, even though it might not be exactly the way that we want them to. And I think if you learn the lessons and you apply them, and you're willing to accept constructive criticism and have not confrontation, but healthy communication with people that you're in a process with and you're on a journey with, I think it can be really, really amazing.
Me too. You know, it's interesting because when I'm thinking about the story of that self-made process, the reason why it's such a strong thing for me is that oftentimes when I talk to people, they're like, how do you do it all? That's like one of the first things people say. And first of all, I'm sorry that I have made it seem as though I'm doing everything. And secondly, I'm sorry that I set a really unrealistic benchmark in your mind. What brings me joy is to make people aware of that and like, oh, I'm actually not doing everything by myself. I have a business partner in my salon. There's a team of 13 stylists in the salon, and they all have different roles. We're very much into ongoing education, and I'm not the only one teaching. Everyone in this space now is teaching. Almost everyone in that space is teaching now. I bring in others from the outside to come into the salon and, do pop-up education. I go to beauty schools, I go to fundraisers, I go to events, and these are not put on by me. I'm coming as a guest, or I'm coming as a collaborator, or I'm going on my own free time. I'm donating my time. Sometimes I'm donating my money. Sometimes I'm donating gift cards. So there's a lot that goes into it. And on top of it, I've had several mentors in my lifetime, and some mentors, which is kind of ironic, but some mentors I would say are not intending to be a mentor. They're like, I would call my kids mentors in my life, and not to be like completely cheesy about it, but they have taught me more about how I can communicate differently in order to foster and nurture a relationship more so than what I want to get out of it. And it was because I want to have a stronger bond or relationship with them. And if I continued to do things the way that I thought was best, then I was going to hurt that relationship. The same thing goes with employees, right? So like if you have people on your team, if you're always coming about it from the way that you're seeing things and you're not trusting their vision or view as much as your own or even more, then you're going to send them the message that, well, you're not as important and you're not as relevant and you're replaceable. And who wants to feel that way? So I think it's really important to focus on creating that narrative, I suppose, instead of it feeling like, oh, this is my thing. I created this. I did it all by myself. I built this all on my own. Rather than that, then make everyone else around you the heroes of your story. And it's just going to not read better, create a better reach, but it's also going to foster those relationships that you have worked so hard at building or creating. And it takes less alienation for you, because that's the thing, is that people will look at someone who is seemingly self-made and they're like, oh, well, they're just a unicorn. I can't do what they're doing because they're somehow magical and they do something differently than me, right? And so like we could do the same thing. I could say the same for one of my girlfriends who has this amazing fitness app, and she is like an avatar. I don't even know. She's like half robot or something. I don't know how she does the workouts that she does every day and remains so chipper, and also like finds a way to get her hair and her makeup done all the time, and like just looks like she's not human. She's like the real AI walking around or something. Like, you're not.
Maybe she is.
I know. I'm like, are you the first like real AI robot like in real life? But it's interesting because she has this whole team behind her, right? And like I know that because she comes in to get her hair done by me, and she shares a lot of these things, and she's got a team that's forever growing. And it's crazy because like she has hit like, I don't know, new benchmarks. She's like somewhere in the millions. And even though she's bringing in millions, she's also paying out that much more. So the more that she makes, the more she has to pay, the more she has to grow, the more team that she has. So that's one of the many, many examples of people that from the outside, they look like, wow, they're doing this all on their own. And they found some magical seed, some magical way of doing it. And you guys, I have fallen for the same thing. I have spent $5,000, $8,000. I've spent so much money on ongoing education, and I may not have gotten the results out of it that I was hoping to get, but I'll tell you what, I learned a lot no matter what. And so I would never say that it wasn't worth it, but I would say that finding the right people and possibly doing your filtration process a little bit more and seeing who it is that's actually having success stories and doing a little bit of homework is going to help serve you in other ways. Regardless if you learn what not to do, I would rather you like do that filtering process first to find better like what will work for you and how they can help you. Business and personal is both in the same. And this whole old school mentality that you have to separate business from pleasure is unrealistic. It's unrealistic, just like self-made is unrealistic. Like, let's remove that narrative and let's understand that like being vulnerable and being able to talk with other people, even if you expel people, it means you're expelling the right people and you're bringing in the right people. And I think that's important to do too. So this is all the stuff that I'm kind of just now discovering. So if you guys figured this out before me, then I have now finally arrived. And for those of you who like, maybe it makes you think of something like, okay, I'm going to give this person another chance. I'm going to give this person another chance. And every single time you do that, then it's very possible that you're taking away from your ability to process or grow. And so just let that sink in for a second. Listen to yourself, trust yourself enough that maybe what is going on in the back of your mind, you kind of already know what needs to happen. So I'm going to use one last example and then I'm going to pass it over to you, Drea, and this will be the close down. But I was talking with a girlfriend of mine who came to visit me and we were doing this really fun collaboration. And we were sitting and having breakfast one morning and she said to me, I have been working for the salon for a really long time and I don't really want to leave because I've been there for so long. How many of us know this story, right? Like, we can translate this in all forms. Like, I could probably relate this to an old friend of mine who we don't have anything in common. And if I were to meet her today, we probably wouldn't be friends, but we have so much history together that we just say friends. So anyway, she's sharing with me, she's been with the salon for a very long time and a lot of changes have happened. And she says, I just don't know if I want to be there any longer. And so what she was saying is, if I asked for higher commission, maybe that would make me want to stay there. And I said, what makes you think that money is going to want to make you stay? And she said, well, I mean, if I'm getting paid more, then maybe I would just not feel so stuck there. Then it would just give me freedom to make different choices. And I just smiled and I just said, I think you already know the answer. And she said, yeah, I know. She goes, well, maybe I'll just try to see if she'll just like give me an increase in commission. And if so, then I'll just stay there a little bit longer. Anyway, long story short, fast forward to today, because this was a while back, she ended up not staying there. And the reason why I'm sharing this story with you is because deep down, you know in your gut, you know in your heart what the answer is. And sometimes it's really easy to lean on external processes where like, oh, if I got paid a little bit more, it's like, well, did you get in this for the money? Are you motivated by money only? If you were paid to do something that you absolutely didn't like doing, would you continue doing it? And the answer for the most part is, I guess if the price was right, I would do it for a little while. But really, when it comes down to the whole thing, for a little while, really what it comes down to is, I don't really want to do it. I don't really want to, but I'll stick it out just to see if anything changes. And guess what? It's not going to change. You've already decided that you're going to leave that place. So what I would say is just stick with your gut a little bit more. Lean on the people that are going to help elevate you, inspire you to be the person that you can be, that you are becoming. And understand that no matter what you see from the outside, if someone is narrating their own story and telling you how great they are, maybe just take a step back and just realize that, okay, so this person seems like a magical unicorn, but there's probably a lot of people that are supporting them. And do I want to be part of that process with them if they're not really being vulnerable enough to share like what really is going on? So that's just thoughts that come into my own head. And this is something that I've learned in the process of all this, is that if somebody is saying that they're doing this one magical thing that has made them this success, like fill in the blank, then now that I've learned that, oh, got it, it actually wasn't this person, but it was actually a whole tribe of people that you're kind of like throwing under the bus and acting like they don't even exist. That's kind of a turn off to me now. And that's a red flag to me now. So anyway, pay attention to that process. Focus on your goals. you already know deep down inside what the answer is.
Good stuff. And you're, the stylist that you're talking about, that just really extends to almost anyone, because at that point with the money versus you're not doing something that aligns with your calling, to me, you're just postponing the inevitable. And the money is going to be a temporary feel good. And you're postponing the inevitable because ultimately you're not honoring like your calling, and you're not going to be happy for very long. So I just feel like life is so short, and if you can't wake up every morning excited about something, then something has to change. So I just feel like not even for anything, like just don't waste 2 years, 6 months, 5 years. If you do know in your gut, then just, have the hard conversation, make the difficult choice so that you can not settle for what you want most for something just that you can deal with right now. So I love that you shared that and you said that. And I kind of want to take it a little bit back to the communication that you mentioned, because if you are going through this self-made process, whatever we determine or you determine that means for yourself, or entrepreneurship, or I feel like this kind of goes into leadership just a little bit. Communication is going to be at the foundation of all of what's going to really propel you forward. And I think having really, really good, strong communication, there's like the two things to it. We talked about the constructive criticism, and I feel like you mentioned you and I, and we've had some of those hard conversations, and I love that we have, I feel like when you have hard conversations where it hurts a little and it's uncomfortable, and someone has the opportunity to leave the business, the friendship, the conversation, and they choose to stay, that's where you know something's solid. That's where you know you have a foundation to build from. It's like that couple that hasn't had a fight yet. It's like, well, you don't know if it's going to work out yet then. Like, you got to have a good fight. You got to go on a good road trip with someone. You got to have a good disagreement. Like, there's certain things that have to happen. So I think communication and the uncomfortableness of a confrontation, if you want to use that word, it allows you to know where you stand. It allows you to know what that is made of and where you can take it from there. So although it's like, ugh, like in the moment, it's like, it doesn't feel good. Ultimately, I'm excited about it because then you really know. That trial and error, like then you really know. But if you're walking on eggshells, or you're people pleasing, or you're saying what people want to hear, or you're being the boss and there's not an exchange, I think you never really get to realize like where the good stuff is and where the solid stuff is and what's possible. So that good communication, I think, is amazing. You talked about ownership in the salon, and I feel like leadership, that's like anything in a leadership role. I feel like you're empowering people and you're serving people. And if you're thinking, I'm the boss, I'm self-made, this is my thing, I think you miss out on being a leader, and you miss out on empowering people, and you miss out on serving people. And anytime you are doing anything that you would ask anyone else to do already, you're always going to get more out of your team. So those are just some thoughts that I have. One thing I always say about communication is don't do it based on emotion, and ask yourself, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it the right timing? And if it's all of those things, then that's when you speak out of kindness, the truth that needs to be shared. And in the same sense, you leave a safe landing pad for that exchange that someone else is going to give. So that's like part of my process. You said, these are things I'm just learning. And it's like, that's what we're actually here for, is that if we can share anything with you guys that we took this long to learn, that you can know sooner, then we've like done something right in this process. But two things that I want to say about self-made to close out is, one, it's either not real. And like Ambrosia shared, there are many, many people making up that self-made story. And 2, that person is so exhausted. They do not have self-care in place. They are so burnt out. It is going to be a very short story. It's not a novel, let me tell you. Those are the 2 things that I think about the self-made story, is that it's not self-made at all and we make it together, or otherwise it's very, very short term. And I just want to encourage you to not go down that road of lonely burnout.
Ooh, that sounds awful, doesn't it? Oh, I love all the things that you're saying. I'm just giving you all the snaps for that. That was,
Why, thank you.
yeah, I love the process that you go through. And guys, speaking of process, dream big, set goals, take action, and we will see you guys next week with some more fun-filled stories, discoveries, processes. And in the meantime, guys, take care.
Good job.